Rome, 37 AD. Marble pillars echo as Emperor Caligula guides his prize stallion into the Senate, drapes a laurel crown between its twitching ears, and proudly grants the beast voting rights over half the empire's scholars. Fast forward 2 millennia to a chrome and glass boardroom, where a CEO with the strategic depth of Hay munches quarterly buzzwords while shareholders neigh in approval. History's joke is clear. Brilliance isn't the admission ticket to power. Confidence wearing blinders is. From gilded stables to neon skylines, crowds still bow to whatever struts the loudest, mistaking spectacle for substance. If a horse can pass legislation and a swaggering lightweight can steer billion-dollar ships, what chance does quiet competence really have? Keep watching, because Machiavelli warned us this parade of hooves and hubris was never an accident. It was the plan. Niccolo Machiavelli, the Renaissance's master of inconvenient truth, wrote that it is better to appear virtuous than to be virtuous. And 500 years later, that advice still pulses behind every glowing podium and quarterly webcast. Imagine him stepping out of 1513 Florence and into today's leadership seminar, smirking while a motivational guru preaches that integrity and IQ guarantee the corner office. Machiavelli would tap the projector, flip the slide, and reveal a parade of modern emperors with resumes thinner than their confidence is thick. We celebrate charisma like a golden ticket, promote bold certainty over quiet expertise, then act shocked when the emperor's PowerPoint has no clothes. The pattern is systemic. Investors call it vision, voters call it relatability, HR departments rebrand it as executive presence. But Machiavelli saw the core transaction. Crowds trade competence for the narcotic of certainty, and rulers happily supply the dose. Blend that ancient insight with the Dunning-Kruger curve, the Peter principle, and a media ecosystem that rewards hot takes over hard data, and you have a recipe for why the loudest person in the Zoom room keeps getting the raise, while the spreadsheet savant gets another polite thank you email. Over the next quarter hour, we'll vivisect this machinery. How intelligence can stall a career, why mediocre leaders surround themselves with softer minds, and how ethical scruples become ankle weights in a race to the top. By the end, you'll not only recognize the Trojan horses clip-clopping toward the boardroom, you'll know how to slam the gates, or, if necessary, ride out on your own smarter steed. Picture a freshly polished Best Leader trophy glinting under stage lights, while a keynote speaker proclaims that hard work plus intelligence inevitably equals power. The audience applauds because the formula feels fair, almost moral, and because we'd all like to believe our late-night spreadsheets will someday crown us kings. Yet the real world keeps leaking counterexamples. The venture-backed visionary who can't read a balance sheet, the dynasty politician whose brightest idea was choosing famous parents, the blustering boss who measures productivity by volume of motivational posters. Machiavelli warned that the crowd is captured by sight and sound more than substance, and modern psychology hands him footnotes. Confidence bias makes us trust the loud, the halo effect lets one flashy trait color every judgment, and the Dunning-Kruger curve hands the microphone to those least aware of their ignorance. Add structural rigging, legacy admissions, old boy networks, lobbying budgets, and the playing field tilts like a carnival game where the smart kid keeps losing his ring while the carnival barker pockets the prize. Even the media algorithm conspires. Nuanced expertise bleeds engagement metrics, but a hot take wrapped in charisma rockets to the top of the feed. Thus, the myth of meritocracy survives only because spectacle blinds us to its cracks. Much like a castle facade projected onto scaffolding at night looks solid until sunrise. The problem isn't a few foolish rulers, it's a feedback loop that rewards performative certainty, punishes thoughtful hesitation, then cites the resulting hierarchy as proof that boldness works. Until we expose the gears, how overconfidence signals competence to the untrained eye, how simple slogans outsell complex truths, how insecure leaders hire yes-men to amplify the echo, the parade of gilded dunces will keep marching past quieter experts sweeping up the confetti. The next time someone tells you the cream rises, remember that oil slicks do too, and a reflective surface isn't the same as depth. Machiavelli opens the anatomy lesson with a scalpel to the ego. Intelligence can be a liability in a game that punishes hesitation. A truly clever mind is cursed with foresight. It sees complexities, weighs collateral damage, anticipates unintended consequences. That mental calculus slows the draw just long enough for the swaggering lightweight to grab the sword and declare victory. In a Renaissance court, that meant losing provinces. In today's startup, it means losing 5 funding rounds to the founder whose only real talent is saying absolutely before anyone finishes a sentence. The paradox is that brilliance quietly audits itself while folly barrels ahead unexamined, and the crowd, mistaking speed for mastery, awards the crown to the first across the line. Confidence then amplifies the error like a megaphone strapped to a foghorn. Humans, wired for quick threat assessments, confuse bold posture with actual skill. The handshake that could crack walnuts eclipses the resume that could fix budgets. Neurostudies show we grant authority to voices pitched in a certain register, to eyes that hold contact 1 second longer, to smiles that broadcast bulletproof certainty. In boardrooms and ballots, the overture is enough. Competence becomes a post-credit scene few viewers stick around for. It's the confidence illusion, a lacquer so glossy that even its owner forgets what lies beneath. Once enthroned, the underqualified leader builds an incompetence network. Surrounded by competent subordinates, the fraud risks exposure, so the safest strategy is to promote loyal mediocrity. Picture concentric rings of yes-men, each layer flimsier than the last, praising the emperor's vision while quietly lowering the bar. This buffering effect insulates the apex from reality checks. Bad news stalls in middle management like a broken elevator, and the organization drifts into a dream world where every quarterly miss is rebranded as a pivot. For the masses outside the castle walls, simplicity is irresistible. Complex truths require humility and homework, but a clear wrong answer feels like a life raft in choppy water. That's the simplicity trap. The crowd cheers slogans that fit on a wristband, votes for leaders who reduce wicked problems to edible hashtags, and celebrates decisive action even when it is decisively misinformed. The subtle thinker explaining trade-off curves looks uncertain. The confident fool promising cake for all looks visionary. In toxic democracies and shareholder meetings alike, the applause meter drowns nuance every time. Then comes the ethical handicap. Moral integrity slows advancement in systems that reward ruthless expedience. A candidate who refuses to bend numbers, smear rivals, or fire whistleblowers carries extra ballast up the corporate hill. Meanwhile, the shameless climber, unburdened by conscience, sprints past. The paradox deepens. The very traits that make someone trustworthy often make them less competitive for power in a warped arena. Combine these dynamics and you breed toxic environments where mediocrity thrives. Think of a greenhouse set to the perfect humidity for mold. Bright seedlings rot while spores spread. Fear of losing face replaces fear of losing money. Data is massaged, questions labeled disloyal, and performance metrics gamed until reality becomes a negotiable asset. The tragedy is recursive. Poor leadership choices create climates that incubate more poor leadership choices. A self-replicating glitch in the code of collective success. To keep the facade intact, rulers deploy mass distraction tactics. Bread and circuses become rebrands and reorgs, meme campaigns, quarterly moonshot announcements, and lavish conferences with choreographed standing ovations. The spectacle saturates attention so thoroughly that stakeholders forget to ask why product deadlines keep slipping or why public services keep failing. Like illusionists misdirecting a crowd with a flash of silk, incompetent leaders wave novelty projects while quietly outsourcing accountability. But every glitch can be debugged. Breaking the cycle starts with inoculation. Teach teams, voters, and students to separate poise from proof. Replace charisma auditions with evidence audits. Show us the numbers, not the narrative. Rotate power so no single personality can fossilize policy. Build dissent channels that bypass the moat of yes men, rewarding the bearer of uncomfortable facts rather than shooting the messenger. On a personal level, learn the early warning signs: excessive self-praise, allergy to detail, scapegoat hobbies, a slide deck heavier on adjectives than data. When you spot those red flags, you can either confront, exit, or if you're feeling Machiavellian yourself, leverage the gap for lateral moves before the edifice collapses. Machiavelli never argued for despair, he argued for realism. Once you see the puppet strings, you're no longer the puppet, but the stagehand who can reroute the lights. Competence may lose the first round to swagger, but in organizations and societies willing to redesign the game, depth eventually outperforms gloss. The blueprint is there. Expose the confidence illusion, puncture the simplicity trap, quarantine the incompetence network, and elevate voices that pair humility with measurable skill. Otherwise, expect more horses trotting down marbled corridors. Only now they'll be live-streamed in 4K and hashtagged leadership goals. Machiavelli's brutal punchline lands like a gavel on crystal. In a system that rewards spectacle, stupidity isn't failure, it's strategy. The sharper mind pauses to weigh ethics, angles, and unintended fallout. The blunter one charges ahead, radiating certainty, scooping up authority before caution can clear its throat. Crowds, craving clarity over complexity, treat that certainty as competence, and every promotion reinforces the illusion that audacity equals ability. Once installed, the underqualified ruler cements the throne with distraction. Flashy town hall announcements, visionary slogans, awards invented in-house, until confidence becomes a self-fulfilling credential. Meanwhile, thoughtful dissenters are labeled negative, overthinking, or not a cultural fit, and the organization slides into a twilight where applause metrics replace performance metrics. Intelligence never vanished, it was simply outpaced by faster, louder ignorance. Machiavelli saw this 5 centuries ago when he wrote that people judge more by the eye than by the hand. And modern leadership psychology stamps the warranty. Halos form around bold predictions, not accurate ones. The shocking realization is that the parade of fools isn't a glitch in power structures. It is the power structure. If we keep mistaking volume for vision and swagger for strategy, expect more horses in corner offices and more emperors designing policies in invisible clothes, all while truly capable minds draft rescue plans in the shadows. Competence, we've seen, is not the natural heir to power. Spectacle is. Machiavelli's Renaissance autopsy of human judgment still fits every modern institution that promotes posture over proof. Confidence bias corrals the crowd, the Dunning-Kruger curve selects its ringleaders, yes men insulate the throne, and ethical restraint trails behind like luggage on a high-speed train. Yet dark diagnosis is only half the prescription. The moment you name these mechanisms, you gain the leverage to rewire them. Organizations can swap charisma auditions for evidence reviews, make dissent a line item in KPIs, rotate leadership before ego calcifies, and pay bonuses in verified results rather than viral sound bites. Teams can adopt red team drills, designated contrarians who test ideas without risking exile. Voters can demand fact-checked debates instead of slogan jousts, rewarding humility that comes with data over certainty that comes with hair gel. On a personal front, vigilance beats victimhood. Chart the early warnings, spotlight addiction, scapegoat rituals, allergic reactions to detail, and pivot before the house of cards hires you as decor. Machiavelli's genius wasn't cynicism, it was clarity. He handed us night vision goggles for power games. Use them, and you'll see that the parade of fools marches only where crowds light the torches. Dim the spotlight on hollow bravado, brighten it on measured competence, and even a landscape long ruled by horses can rediscover the value of a true rider. If you've witnessed an incitatus rise, a swaggering lightweight promoted beyond their depth, share the tale below. What sign did everyone ignore? Who paid the price? Your story could be the caution flare someone else needs. And if dissecting power dynamics with a scalpel of philosophy and a wink of dark humor is your idea of useful entertainment, subscribe to Intuitra and ring the bell. The next autopsy is already on the table.